We want to go to Pakistan now because one of the people we've relied on a good deal in the last year or so is Ahmed Rashid, who is the author of a book called Jihad. He's also a correspondent for the Far Eastern Economic Review and the Daily Telegraph in Britain, but he spends an awful lot of time both in person and on the phone with us. Ahmed, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How would you characterize I'm well, thank you. How would you characterize the current U.S. position in Afghanistan?
Well, I must say I respect a lot what Senator Kerry has said. I mean, I don't think what is in question here is that how the U.S. is conducting present operations against al-Qaeda. I think the real question is how is the U.S. conducting the peace or the semi-peace situation in Afghanistan, and that has meant bringing in money for reconstruction and taking the lead in bringing in peacekeepers, not just in Kabul, but in some of the cities outside. And I think the failure of the international community over the last 6 or 7 months has been their inability or refusal to live up to what they pledged to do in December when the new government was set up in Kabul. That is money for reconstruction and peacekeepers.
Now, do you notice in the countryside whether that commitment is being met or not met?
Well, it certainly is not being met. No major reconstruction projects have started, although the Karzai regime has been in power now for 9 months. There are no peacekeepers outside Kabul. Only now has the U.S., the Defense Department, said that they would encourage European countries or other countries to perhaps send more peacekeepers to go outside Kabul. But I think the real situation is that everyone is looking for the U.S. to take the lead. Unless the U.S. is going to take the lead about pushing all the Western donors to provide money for reconstruction on a very quick basis, and also to expand security and stability in Afghanistan by providing peacekeepers, we are going to see this government in Kabul go downhill very rapidly. We've already had some really violent incidents in Kabul, the attempted assassination of President Karzai a few days ago. And really, you know, when you look at Karzai, what he's been saying simply is that he has nothing to offer anyone. He has no money, he can't give people jobs, he can't give them the vision of hope and expectation that there was 9 months ago. Now, Afghans are very patient. But there's a limit to their patience.
Ahmed, let me ask you this. Our daily lives are full of rumors about Osama bin Laden, and most recently a series of reports that al-Qaeda is beginning to move back into the protective cover of Afghanistan in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Is it the same there, and what do you hear?
Well, I think the deteriorating situation in the south of the country amongst the Pashtun population, who initially supported the Taliban and where much of the war took place and is still taking place, they are feeling very alienated. And I think there's a growing anti-American feeling there. There's a growing sense of alienation and frustration with their own government. There are ethnic problems with a rival ethnic group, the Tajiks. And I think this is all giving al-Qaeda, Taliban, a new kind of feeding ground upon which they can try and go back into Afghanistan and try and reorganize some kind of opposition against the U.S. presence. The third element in this is that there's a new...
Is what?
The new element in this is, of course, the presence of Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, the renegade
one of the warlords in
from
Afghanistan.
the 80s. Yeah, and he is now joined up with the Taliban and al-Qaeda, and U.S. troops are trying to get him in the east of the country.
Ahmed, thank you very much for giving us time. I know it's late where you are. Appreciate your wisdom as always. Ahmed Rashid, who is in Pakistan tonight. Let's go briefly now to Afghanistan. There are 10,000 troops still in the country. Their mission is somewhat different than what it was 10 months ago. And as Ahmed Rashid said, there's a new government in the country. Its stability is still very much in question. ABC's David Wright is at Bagram Air Base. David, can you hear me?
I can indeed, Peter.
Good. You're just north of Kabul this evening. You've been there for a week or so now. What's your own assessment of stability in the country?
Well, there's a good deal of nervousness on the streets. As Ahmed Rashid was saying, there's a sense around this country that Hamid Karzai does not have the support needed to really secure his leadership. Most leaders in Afghanistan's history have earned their stripes through being warlords, through being warriors. Hamid Karzai is a politician. And there's a sense out there that there's a good deal of uncertainty about whether he'll be able to lead Afghanistan without greater support from the U.S. troops.
Do you get any sense, being with American troops as you are today, and we watched earlier the ceremony today for their commemoration of 9/11, that they are in any way, shape, or form uncertain or unsettled by the current state of the mission?
Absolutely, Peter. There are great security concerns for troops around here. Artillery was brought in for the first time to protect the troops in Kandahar. And early this morning, the day began with potshots being taken at one of the guard towers here at Bagram Air Base. Every day, there are concerns about security. And we have to remember that the Soviets were here for a year before opposition coalesced against them. And there's concern here that the longer U.S. forces remain here, they will become fairly big targets for a community that is, unless they're able to win hearts and minds.
Many thanks, David. I see you're also, among other things, about to lose your light. I appreciate you giving us the time today. David Wright, our correspondent in Afghanistan, our current correspondent in Afghanistan. A lot of people get to visit.